Guys, it's Quana back again with another video. Hope you guys are doing awesome. So today I'm giving an episode breakdown of Donald Glover's new show Swarm, which is streaming currently on Amazon Prime. And it's all about an obsessed fan who goes too far in her adoration of a music superstar. The show stars Dominique Fishback, Chloe Bailey, Damson Idris, Paris Jackson, Roy Culkin, Cree Summer has a cameo, Norm Lewis, Billie Eilish, Kirstie Clemens. Like, it is a veritable who's who of like young Hollywood stars. So many people in this show for it only to have 7 episodes and about 30 minutes each. This was an intense 2.5 hours of binging, but once you are in for this ride. So in this video, I'm talking all about episode 1. I'm going to be recapping the episode, talking about references and performances of the actors. So if you've watched the episode or if you are okay with spoilers, please hang out with me for just a few minutes and let's talk down in the comments, because guys, this show has had me in a chokehold since I watched it this morning, and I definitely wanted to come over here and talk to you guys about it. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, I definitely highly recommend this show. And as someone who is a Baby Beehive member, still have my Beyonce Renaissance package in the corner because I am not opening it. I've been debating whether I'm going to open it like right before the concert. And yes, I did cop some concert tickets. Sorry to everyone who didn't, but this show was still so entertaining to me. I found the humor in it. It's a dark comedy. It's satirical. So let's talk about it. If you watched the episode and if you are okay with spoilers, let's just go ahead into it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also ring the bell, because I'm going to be recapping and breaking down every episode of this show, because it was just that good to me. Episode 1, we're introduced to the superstar parody of Beyonce for the show named Naija. And her number one fan is Andrea Green, who goes by the name Dre, played by Dominique Fishback, who if this is your first time seeing Dominique Fishback, she was in Judas and the Black Messiah. She was in Project Power, opposite of Jamie Foxx. Of course, Judas and the Black Messiah, she starred opposite of Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield. She is an amazing actress, and she gobbled this role up. Okay, she just did everything. She was so good. But she is a huge fan of Naija. She would do anything to see Naija in concert, and got only given an opening montage of all the ways in which Naija is like the Beyonce of this world. But we see her opening a letter to a new Discover card, I think it was Discover card, and purchasing like $1,800 worth of floor tickets to go see Naija in concert. This was me a month ago, not that much because I did not get 4 seats, but this was me about a month ago. And so she goes to tell her best friend, aka her sister, aka her roommate, Marissa, and she runs into seeing Marissa, played by Chloe Bailey. We love the Bailey girls over here, getting worked over by her boyfriend Khalid, played by Damson Idris. So she's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna bounce. Goes to the store and is told by the owner that Marissa owes her some money for like some extra wet banana flavored condoms. And she also gets a text from Marissa saying, hey, go stop and get some food. So she pays off Marissa's debt to the corner store, goes gets food. When she comes back, Marissa's like, girl, I don't owe anybody any money. You are so gullible. You believe anything. And we get to kind of see, or at least it suggested, just how naive and gullible Dre is. But also we get a lot of like the nuance and relationship between Khalid and I'm about to say Chloe, Marissa's character. He's being very like sexually flirtatious with Dre, talking about her being a virgin, talking about her sucking on her fingers, saying that he has some boys who would definitely give her a little working over herself if she should want that. And it's highly inappropriate. But we also learned that Marissa is a makeup artist, and she is being given a position of doing makeup for a up and coming Houston star. I took it as a Houston star, and I was taking it possibly as a stand-in for Meg, but also the way that they were talking about her name being Drama Queen, I thought that could be a couple of people. It could be someone who will remain nameless, because I don't want that kind of smoke in my comments. But I thought that perhaps a very pink inspired person was that character. And so she needs Dre to work the job for her that evening, because they work at the mall, and she needs her to work their booth because she's going to be doing makeup. So later on, we see Khalid tell Dre that he wants to take Marissa to ATL for her birthday, but she goes ahead and she's like, no, she can't go that weekend because I got Nyjah tickets. And he immediately is very dismissive about Nyjah. He's like, I don't get it. And she goes in to explain to him like why Nyjah is so important to them. But then later on that night, while she's working at the booth, he stops by and asks her to go help him pick up some perfume for Marissa. This seems very fishy to me, and it's very much giving like he just wants an opportunity to continue to flirt with her and to also like push her buttons. But they again talk about her love of Nyjah. When she gets back to the booth, however, the booth has been robbed and vandalized, and she has to call Marissa and tell her, which gets her in a lot of trouble, possibly about to lose her job. And this causes a huge fight between the two of them. And Marissa's like, I need space. I need to grow up. We need to get some separation here. I'm going to go stay with Khalid. And Dre is devastated. We see her curled up in a ball in her room, and then suddenly she gets a message and an alert on her phone that Nyjah has just dropped a new album. And she starts to watch the visuals for this album and feels super empowered. She puts on a sexy dress and goes out and hits the club and starts dancing and cozies up to this white guy. I don't even know if he had a name, but it was Roy Culkin, who, dang, did he steal his brother's face. But I'm not mad at it. And the next morning comes, and it seems like they have had a very nice night together. So perhaps those issues that Khalid was talking about earlier, she no longer possesses that nice little cherry fruit anymore. But while she was there with him, she has missed like a dozen calls from Marissa, who's upset because she found out that Khalid cheated on her, which mirrors the lyrics to songs on Nyjah's new album, that Nyjah was cheated on by her husband. And when Dre gets home, she goes and gets the tickets. She gets a series of texts just showcasing how upset Marissa is, but she finds Marissa dead of an apparent overdose. All of Marissa's things are moved out of their apartment, but Dre finds Marissa's phone and uses it to text that she misses her. I had forgotten that moment when I watched the later episode, and it was freaking me out a little bit. So I was glad that I watched it again. Also, while Dre was posting about Marissa's death, she gets like a whole lot of misogynistic messages that are like boasting or happy, gleefully happy, because the stan of Nyjah, who was so vocal on Twitter, has died, and it's very distressing to her. She gets all dolled up and goes to the funeral, but she definitely is not in the right attire, and I thought that was the reason why she gets kicked out of the funeral, but we find out later. Marissa's family has her escorted out, and she's like, but this is my sister. And that led to some confusion, but we get that revealed, I think, later. And so she goes outside and she sees this humongous beehive, and she hears buzzing, which we hear all throughout the episode every time she gets flustered or upset. This buzzing transitions us into the next scene where we see her go into Khalid's house and kind of talking to him about Marissa and consoling each other until he becomes a creep again, and he offers her some tea, but she uses that distraction to hit him on the head with the vase and begin to like bludgeon him to death. As soon as she kills him, she's like immediately hit with like the endorphins and the rush of it, and she's titillated by it. And so she opens the refrigerator to look for something to eat, finds a sweet potato pie, and begins to devour the pie with his blood still on her hands. the dog starts barking, and that is the end of episode 1. So this episode was so intense. First of all, it feels so much longer than 30 minutes. It's amazing to me how they managed to get the pacing. We're going to talk about that later, but it felt like longer than 30 minutes. I was actually surprised that it was only 30 minutes. It definitely, first of all, is a dark comedy and it's a satire. I love that even the opening sequence, when it says that this is based on true events, is the thing that you do when you're writing satire, which is you write satire as though what you're saying, though it is fake, is true. And I love that. I love that because I think in this day and age, people still don't understand what satire is meant to do. It's meant to be a critique on society. And I teach this to my students all the time. We start out like in a week or so, we're going to be reading Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal. And so they'll be learning this very thing, which is that you're writing this untrue thing as though it were true so that you can see held up to the reality, how ridiculous the reality is. So the character of Marissa Jackson, I did not know this because I was not deep on the internet back in those days, but it's based on a fake article. I think I'm going to pin it down in the description if you want to read it, but it was based on, or at least an article about the fake article. Based on a fake article that came out in 2016 that claimed that a woman named Marissa Jackson killed herself after learning that Jay-Z cheated on Beyonce via the lyrics of Lemonade. Like, she heard Lemonade and immediately was like, I'm killing myself. Before any of this is confirmed, before I know who these songs are about, I'm going to kill myself. And so that's kind of where the initial inspiration for this comes from. And then everything after that is kind of interconnected, loosely based on real events, but also exaggerated for the purposes of the show. One thing I thought was really interesting to highlight that was the text that Marissa sends to Dre, read as though she's upset about Khalid cheating on her, but then also dismayed about Cache, I think, or either Cache, though, I think is what it is, Cache cheating on Nyjah. And it's like back and forth. And it's almost like she's conflating what happened to these famous celebrities to her real life. We've heard this before, right? People say, if this person gets cheated on, there's no hope for the rest of us. And it's like, we're conflating that a little bit. But again, I think the satire works so well in this show. This episode is directed by Donald Glover, and it feels like a Donald Glover. I like the idea that we're getting a style from him now, where this is becoming a trend. This is his style. And so I love when directors have a style. We have a Donald Glover style. I think we're going to have hopefully a Quinta Brunson style. There's an Issa Rae style. There's a Jordan Peele style. I love that because this gives us people to study, and I teach film, so I love this. Also, the production team and writers, brava. Oh, and I also have to shout out Janine Nabors, who also, I think that's how you say her name, because it's spelled Nabers, I think, but I'm thinking you pronounce it like neighbors, your next door neighbor, knock, knock, knock. But she created the show and wrote the show, so I definitely don't want to give all of the credit to Donald Glover. I think they worked in tandem in a partnership together, and fantastic job. But the production team and the writers definitely did their homework on the Beyonce references, from like the montage of her midnight self-titled drop to the images from Formation it's like Formation / Lemonade, because we only get a little bit of the Lemonade images that were like inspired the Faux album festival for Nyjah, but also works as a stand-in for Renaissance. Like, just images on images, the images on the wall. They just did a great job with getting those references, either being specifically very much on the nose, one for one, or loosely inspired by. There are moments where the choreography is the same as Coachella, is the same. The only thing that I think was a little interesting is I felt like some of the references come later and it was messing me up with the timeline, which again, We'll talk about pacing later. Also, another thing that I thought was really smart, casting one of Beyonce's proteges, Chloe Bailey, as one of her fans and Dre's first victim. Well, not really her first victim, but kind of, sort of, was really, really smart, especially because she gets so much backlash on social media and so much criticism for like being sexy. And yet that opening scene has been bookmarked by a lot of people on Twitter, which is like really weird because there's literally like not much nudity at all, but there was literally a white man's sausage in this episode and nobody has mentioned that, not one peep of that. White man's sausage visible under a bowl of strawberries, and nobody has mentioned that, but the internet exploded over seeing what could be the side of possibly Chloe Bailey's thigh, but also might be a body double. So again, that just kind of shows you like the objectification. Damson Idris as Marissa's sleazeball boyfriend. He plays that role a little too well. Dominique Fishback, stellar. I literally put a note, ad lib here. I don't even know what to say. I'm going to say more as the episodes progress because she just gets better each episode. So just to kind of get things to an end here, I don't really have too many critiques about this first episode, other than the pacing was fast. So fast, in fact, that it feels at times that the characters were talking about things that seem like weeks had passed, but yet this first episode roughly takes place over a week to 2 weeks time. So pacing within the show's timeline feels fast at times, but also pacing as you're watching it feels fast because these are 30-minute episodes, which lend itself to the comedic element of it. But because it's so intense, it's almost like you're not even breathing for those 30 minutes because you're just hit. It's just like it goes from scene to scene to scene so quickly that it's a little overwhelming at times. It'd be interested to see this recut slightly and put together as one long film to see what it would be like in that regard. I don't know that it would hold up as well, but it was interesting. I also have thoughts about what we get in this episode and things that are revealed later that I think will play a big role in the show overall and what the show means, but you're going to need to stick with me for episodes 2 and 3, and I will give you those thoughts later. I'm going to drop an episode a day, so please come back for episode 2 and 3. Please, let's talk about episode 1 down in the comments. Let me know what your favorite moments were. I would say my favorite moments of the show were that Damson and Chloe scene at the beginning. Not for the reasons you think, you little nasties. I think it really just showcases how grimy Khalid is and how also fixated Dre is with Marissa. I think that it really reminded me of like Single White Female, and I loved that. I loved it for that reason. And I think it also highlights the real issue with Dre at this point, which is her fear of growing up and the divide between the two of them. Like Marissa has evolved in her life and only goes back to her like crux of fixating on Nyjah for like comfort. Dre is like perpetually stuck in a childlike state and seems like she's afraid of growing up. And Dominique captures that so well. And I also love the scene where she's eating the pie at the end. I think it just like highlights the compulsion that she seems to have, the inability to control her compulsions, which I think is indicative of stan culture, but also just indicative of like the overconsumption of everything. But let me know down below in the comments what you thought of this pilot episode of Swarm, and let me know if you want to continue this ride with me for episodes 2 and 3. Don't forget to hit the subscribe, give this video a thumbs up if you stuck with me through this long of the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Toodles!